Hey everybody, out for the morning walk, and it's much colder than I thought. I should have worn a jacket. The breeze is blowing. It's back in the 30s. No snow, sun is shining, so I'm hopeful that we'll get our steps in today. Yesterday, it was raining, so stay tuned, because I'm bringing you part one of the Casey's Nickelodeon murders. Welcome to another edition of Crafting and Crime Daily. I am Crafting Journey with Rebecca, that's me. Also known on my second YouTube channel as The Leftovers, although I have not put up a video in a while because of the holidays and, no yard sales going on this time of year. But the link to that is down in the description. And please do not forget to hit the like button today. Yep, he's been helping me cross stitch, holding the light for me. Yeah. So this is the show where I recap live trials, but there are no live trials to recap right now. So I'm going to bring you the story of the Casey's Nickelodeon murders, also known as the Miramar murders, if you happen to live in Portugal. There was a series, I think it aired on Netflix in Portugal back in 2020. Same murders, because these murders actually happened in the town of Miramar, Florida. Very close to where I lived, Hollywood, Florida. At the time of these murders, that's where I was living, Hollywood, Florida. Yep, my son was 14 at the time of the murders. This was in 1994, June of 1994. My son was 14. My daughter would have been 11. And I was on the brink of a divorce. Just graduated from law school. No, I just went into law school. 93, I went into law school. I graduated in 94, right? So, no. Let's back up here, okay. 93, I go into law school. I graduated in 97. Okay. Let's put it into context. Married to a Hollywood police officer. I wish he were still alive today, because I would love to ask him about these murders. Like, what did he know at the time? Because Hollywood and Miramar are like right next to each other. There's Hollywood, Pembroke Pines, Miramar. They're all like within the same vicinity. It's in Broward County, Florida. Remember the cops show? Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? That was Broward County, Florida. Yeah, Florida has the strangest happenings. So there's a bar back in the day called Casey's Nickelodeon. And even before this bar is established, the proprietor of this bar, Casimir Sukarovsky, he had grown up in Buffalo, New York, and his parents ran a bar up in Buffalo, and it was frequented by the Buffalo Bills football team members, including O.J. Simpson. Casimir Sukarovsky became fast friends with O.J. Simpson. Anyway, fast forward, his parents buy this bar in South Florida, and he's the proprietor. He becomes the proprietor of the bar in South Florida, and he calls it again Casey's Nickelodeon. It was an after-hours nightclub. So most of the bars would close down about 2 a.m. This one would be open. So on the early morning hours of June 25th, Marie Rogers and her friend, Sharon Anderson, decide they're going to go over to Casey's Nickelodeon. Now, this was a place they frequented. People knew who they were. They come in, say hello to everybody. It's like 3:30 in the morning. And Casimir Sukarovsky, also known as Butch Casey, that's what he liked to be called by. He greets them, and he sends them over some appetizers, and they always go in after the last call at 2, because then it would just be the frequent people that were there. So they're in there, and Later on, Butch Casey invites them to his home in Miramar to have some drinks. So the three of them leave and they go to his home in Miramar. Now, he lives in this neighborhood in Miramar, very low key, nothing, that stands out about this neighborhood, just your average middle class neighborhood. The only thing that stood out in the neighborhood was his house because of the landscaping. Now, he was very gregarious, this guy, Butch Casey. He would greet all the customers at the restaurant. He would go from table to table and have conversations. And just, he wore a diamond bracelet and a diamond necklace. And, he was just very flashy. He carried a chrome-plated pistol under his jacket. And he was known for having wads of cash in his socks, inside of his boots. And that was Butch Casey. Now, researching this case, I wanted to show you a picture of Butch Casey. I did find one, but it was not easy. Apparently, he did not like being photographed. He liked being videotaped, as you'll hear later on, but didn't like to be photographed, apparently, because I couldn't find very many photos of him at all. Lots of Marie and Sharon, and here's a picture of them as well. But not much of Butch, but he shaggy blonde hair, just a ladies' man. The ladies liked him. So rugged good looks. Don't we all fall for that? So he takes these two women back to his home, and so that's the morning of the 25th. So on the morning of the 26th in Palm Beach County, now before I was talking about Broward County. Now you drive a little bit north and you're in Palm Beach County, next county up. 90 miles away from Butch Casey's home, a Palm Beach County officer, sheriff's officer, Palm Beach County is huge. It not only has, West Palm Beach where Donald Trump resides in Mar-a-Lago. That's just a very small area of Palm Beach, but it's a huge county, and it encompasses this area known as Belle Glade. And Belle Glade is the northern part of the county, and it's very, very, very rural. This is all migrant worker type population. So this sheriff's officer, he's out, and on this dirt road, he sees smoke. And he goes to where he sees the smoke, and it's near this sugarcane field, and he sees this Mercedes-Benz SL convertible 1991 on fire. So they trace it back to Butch Casey. So this officer calls the Miramar Police Department, and he says, hey, can you go out to Butch Casey's home and let him know that we've found his vehicle and it's burned. It's burned out. So this officer goes to Butch Casey's home on the morning of the 26th. The day after, Butch leaves with these two women to go to his home for drinks. So on the morning of the 26th, this officer goes out there, knocks on the door, no answer. He waits and he waits, no answer. So he just leaves his business card in the door. Because, it's not an emergency. The car is burned up. So the next morning, the 27th, which is a Sunday. No, Sunday was the 26th. Monday morning, the 27th. Sharon's mother and sister, they're getting worried because Sharon has not come home. So the mother calls the sister and says, hey, she didn't come home. She has her car, but, it's in my name. Should I report it stolen? And her sister said, I don't know. It's up to you, Mom. But they said, Sharon was supposed to go to the Lion King movie with her mom that day, and she just never showed up. And, by the afternoon, they're really, really worried, and they just don't know what to do. Meanwhile, Marie Rogers' mother, both of these women were 25 years old, but Marie Rogers lived at home with her mom, who raising a 2.5-year-old daughter, single mom. Her mom starts to worry because both of these mothers said, their daughters would call if they, they've done this before, stayed out late, but they would always call and say, hey, we're going to stay out late, or we're going to go spend an afternoon over here or here. They would check in. Neither lady had checked in. Now, just a little bit about Marie Rogers. She was from Hollywood, where I was living at the time. I was living in Hollywood. She was from Hollywood, and she had studied fashion design and had fashion shows scheduled. And the Sharon Anderson was into acting and dancing, and had gotten parts in music videos in Miami. So she was, kind of doing her thing. These two girls were just living life. So finally, Marie Rogers' mother, she calls 911. And she says, listen, I know it hasn't been 24 hours, but my daughter, she this is just not like her. She has not come home. And she hasn't called, and I'm very, very worried. And so she does mention that Marie was picked up by Sharon, and that they usually go to Nick Casey's Nickelodeon. So an officer goes to, a Broward Sheriff's officer goes to deputy, they call them deputies. This deputy goes to Casey's Nickelodeon, and he speaks with Ray, the night manager. And Ray he shows him a picture of Marie, and he says, oh yeah, they're regulars. They were here the morning of the 25th, and they left with Butch Casey. Went to have drinks at his house. So they're like, well, have you seen Butch Casey? And he's like, no, but as a matter of fact, I've been trying to get a hold of him. I've been calling his house, and he's not answering. And which is very unusual, because he has call waiting. So even if he's on a phone call, he would click over and answer the call that was coming through. So for him to just not answer was very, very unusual. So the officer says, well, let's go to his house. So he follows Ray over to, they go to Miramar, to Butch Casey's house. The officer knocks on the door. There's no answer. He sees the card that was left by the Miramar police officer the day before. He sees the card there, and there's no answer. So he's walking around the perimeter of the house, and he goes to the back of the house, and he looks through the sliding glass door, and he sees that there's blood on the couch, and he sees 3 bodies. And that's when the investigation starts. So during this investigation, they find in a bookcase, like a hidden bookcase, how those you have bookcases and you can hide things in them. Anyway, they find videotapes. This is in the bedroom of Butch Casey, and like 200, like lots of videotapes, and it was him having sex with women. I don't think they knew they were being videotaped. He didn't like to have his photograph taken, but he was videotaped lots. So they figured out that the camera was above the bed. So then they start searching the rest of the house for cameras. Now, this is 1994. People just didn't do that back then. They didn't have surveillance cameras in their home. They didn't have the Ring doorbell where they could have, you could see who was passing your home. And they didn't have that in 1994. And the video that was being taken was black and white, and it wasn't that great. So they do find in the living room area a camera, and it was actually over the dining room table. Now they follow the wires, and they track it to a VCR. They find the VCR, and inside the VCR is a videotape. Apparently Butch Casey, prior to him going to work on the 24th into the 25th, he turned it on. He turned on the video camera, and then he goes to work. So there's a long period of nothing on this video. Then all of a sudden you see the entire crime play out on this videotape. And during the trial later, fast forward later on, the trials, because there were multiple trials. When the videotape is showed to the jury, it's 22 minutes long of two intruders torturing these three people. So apparently what you see on the video at first is Butch, and he's, you know, walking around bravado with his blonde hair, and he's looking at himself in the mirror, and he's playing around with the girls, and they're having wine at the dining room table. Now all of a sudden you see an intruder burst through the sliding glass door. This intruder is wearing something was covering his face, and he's, you know, he has a shirt on. Later on the video, he actually removes what was covering his face, so you can actually see his face. But this is not a great video. He comes in, he's got a machine gun. He raises it over his head and brings it down, barrel, you know, the butt end of it into Casey's face, Butch Casey's face. Then all of a sudden you see the second intruder. He comes in and he looks like he's carrying a stick. So there, you know, this video plays out. You see one of the women run into the bedroom. They subdue her. They tie her up with a phone, you know, tie her feet up with a phone cord. Now both women are on the dining room floor, as well as Casey, because they beat him up. They rummage his house. It looks like on the video that they're putting various things into their pockets. It's like they're looking for something. Then they go over to Butch and they make him take his boots off and his socks off. And like I said, Butch was known to carry a large amount of cash, and they did take something from the boot and put it into their pocket. So that probably was cash. So these two people were later charged with not only murder, but robbery. So as the video goes on, one of the intruders takes the chrome gun that Butch Casey had. When he had come in with the two women, he had taken the gun out from under his jacket and just set it down. Well, one of the intruders picks it up and he shoots one of the women in the head. And then he goes to shoot the other woman, but he misses. So she's now come to find out through autopsy that she was playing dead because she didn't get hit with that first bullet. So then the second intruder takes the machine gun. He's got to get out in the action, and he shoots all three of them again. So the woman that was playing dead is now really dead. Each one of them were shot in the neck, the back of the head. Casey had cuts and bruises all over his face. His teeth were knocked out, and he was also shot in the head. And then they leave. Now, the second intruder was wearing a ball cap and sunglasses. So the police, they put out flyers. You know, they don't tell the media that they've got this videotape, but they put out flyers, and those are, you know, and it's on the news, and here's what the two intruders look like. So a cop down in Miami-Dade, he picks up a man by the name of Pablo Ibar, who is actually the son of this famous highlight player. You know, highlight is a huge, big thing down in South Florida. This is where the Portugal reference comes into, because they were from that area. So the Miami-Dade cop calls the Broward Sheriff's Office, and he says, listen, I've got this guy here. I picked up on, you know, whatever. It was an unrelated charge, but he really looks like the guy in your flyer. So this cop goes down there, and yeah, he looks like the guy in the flyer. And he takes a Polaroid shot of this guy, because they have a witness, not a witness to the murders, but a witness that saw, after the murders, these two guys getting into a Mercedes-Benz in front of Butch Casey's home, taking the Mercedes-Benz and driving off. Now, the Mercedes-Benz windows were tinted. This guy was in his vehicle. His windows were tinted. So the question is, how much, you know, did he really get a good look at Butch Casey's car and the two men that were in it? So they bring him in and they show him the Polaroid, and they say, hey, is this the guy that you saw in the vehicle? And he says, I don't know, why can't you just do a lineup and let me see everybody? So they do a lineup. They bring Pablo Ibar in and put him through a lineup, and the guy picks him out. Yeah, that's the guy. That's the guy. So he's arrested for these murders. And he, at the time, was living in Hollywood in this flop house. Him and another roommate called Seth Penalvar. He is also arrested because a third roommate says, "Yeah, these two are the guys in the flyer." Yeah, it's Pablo and the other guy. So now we've got another person saying, "Yeah, these two are the ones in the flyer." Another roommate, not real reliable. So anyway, he's arrested, and multiple trials ensue. So tomorrow I'm going to start covering. I'm going to fill in some of the blanks, start covering some of the trial, talk about some witnesses, some confidential informants. Yeah, it's going to get interesting. So that's the story of Casey's Nickelodeon murders. Yep. Oh my goodness. I need coffee. So like I said, I started the cross stitch last night. Did I talk about this? Man, does my neck hurt. That 18 count is a bitch. Let me tell you. I got out my magnifier glasses that fit over, I thought I had them here somewhere. Those are, they keep falling off. And then I have the light that goes around your neck. That helped. But then the light keeps sliding around. And so, like I said before, this thing is like 24 pages long. And each page has, I'm going to say, 100 squares. And I finished 1.5 squares of page one. So I will be like, that project will be in my will when I'm done. Yeah, someone's going to inherit it. Let's talk about one of my calendar crimes. I'm going to read this one to you. We're going back to Florida. Florida woman throws cat at a police dog. This should be good. In January of 2013, Lisa Frank slashed her boyfriend when he refused to allow her to use his food benefits card. She then fled into a shed as police arrived at the scene in Orlando, Florida. Police released a canine into the shed to subdue Frank, at which point Frank saw fit to engage the most timeless of enemies and threw her cat at the police dog. The cat latched onto the dog's muzzle, and police were left to their own devices to subdue Frank, who by then had armed herself with a concrete trowel. Some chemical spray and a second police dog later, Frank was finally subdued and taken into custody. She was charged with the attempted murder of her boyfriend and harming a police dog. The cat was shaken but unharmed. Okay, that's funny. If you to bring your cat when you commit a crime, just throw it at the police dog. That's hilarious. Stitch would run away. He'd be like, "Nope, I'm out of here. I'm out." Oh my goodness. So this morning while I was doing my research, of course, I put the wrong drills down. So I have to like pick up some of the drills and move them around. Oh, I hate when that happens. Let me show you my progress though, before we call it a show. Because I've got almost 2 sections done. Same as the cross stitch. It just looks so cool. Look how cool that looks. So I did use some Aurora Borealis around some of these, which I assume is like space, galaxy, this is the outer space. The door opens into nothing. So I put some ABs around in there. So I think it looks pretty cool. I went ahead and left the 310 as 310. And whatever the door calls for is what I am using. So very, very cool. I think it's so far so good. This is a really neat painting. It really is. Okie doke. That is the show for today. Someday we're going to have a trial. I know the Murdoch murders are later this month. You know, Alex Murdoch trial is scheduled for the, later on in January. So we'll be getting to that soon. So stay tuned. But meanwhile, I'll keep bringing you crime stories. So tomorrow will be part 2 of the Casey Nickelodeon murders. So I hope to see you there. Please don't forget to leave a comment. Let me know, if you're having a great day, what you doing, what you up to. Are you stepping? Yeah, let's get to stepping. Yep. All right, guys. Love you. Have a great day. Bye.